regular meeting for March 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Santiago.
Here.
Commissioner Pepitone.
Here.
Vice Mayor Parent.
Here.
Commissioner Udalvis.
Here.
Commissioner Cooper.
Here.
We have the invocation salute to the flag. The Pastor Jack Paulsburner from First United Methodist Church to deliver the invocation, followed by the salute to the flag. Can we all stand, please? Pastor, you can start the invocation.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this evening, Lord. I thank you for everyone that came out here. I thank you for the change of the weather, Lord, and the new growth and new birth that we see, Lord. I just ask you to be with everybody here tonight, these leaders, these commissioners, that they make decisions, that you might give them wisdom, guidance, and just bless them through the things they do. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Pastor. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975. Was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any review changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Can we go right to bills, please?
Mayor, move that bills be paid after properly certified.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pepitone.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent.
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Mayor Santiago.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, Mr. Mayor, motion to approve and dispense with the reading of the following minutes and to proceed with the regular order of business, February 18, 2020, work session, regular session, closed session.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent.
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Mayor Santiago.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now reach public comment on agenda items only. Anyone that would like to speak on an agenda item, please step up to the mic, state your name and your concerns, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Good evening, Kirk Hewitt, Millville. I'm going to carry on a little bit from my math situation last meeting, now that we have one new figure. $154.60 a week. With the 3.5%, that's what I'm going to be paying for property taxes on my house. $618.41 a month. I can afford it. How many people in this town can't afford numbers like that? 2 cents. Talk about the budget. We know we were talked to about 2 cents for EMS. We knew that going in. That was the cost of getting a good EMS back in the city. It's fine. My count on the police department. There were 7 officers hired by this commission, but 7, and that may not be right, it may be larger, have gone for various reasons in the last year and a half. We need EMS. We need more officers in the police department. Where's the money that paid those officers that are gone? Where's the money that was budgeted and not used this year for snow removal? This is just 2 examples of money gone. This may, or I should say, will not sit well with some people. But I don't care. When is this commission going to realize it's time to cut? Cut pay raises, cut employees, cut out of control year-end payments on legal contracts. Stop welcoming nonprofits that don't pay taxes. Stop praising life-size checkerboards. Start putting yourselves in others' shoes. This is Millville. It can never be a Vineland, but it sure looks like it's a competition to be worse than Bridgeton. That's not much of a future in my mind. Even Jen Quinn, last week on his South Jersey show, mentioned that as he drove down High Street, more than half of the buildings are boarded up. Something's wrong. It only takes 2 of you commissioners up there tonight for this ordinance to vote no and make it get down to actual work. Where can you grab some money at? Because that's what it is. You got to grab money. You got to find money somewhere. If it's furloughs, it's furloughs. Every working person in the world, sometime or another, is caught up in furloughs. Yes, we did an Oprah last week for salaries and pays of the city employees. How in the world can a city employee be getting a $10,000, $12,000 a year raise? I realize there's unions involved, and I hate unions, but that's the way the world goes now. With that said, we all realized there was going to be a hike for EMS. I hope we all realize, and I think everybody realizes, citizens, commissioners, especially you, Commissioner Pepitone, because it's your department. We need police officers. We can't keep losing. I know we lost 2 to other towns. We lost 2 to other towns. They got hired here because it was easy to get hired, and then they move on to other towns. Somebody stop this tonight. 2 of you. One of you is looking going somewhere else for your political career. You want to carry this giant pay raise with you to the campaign? Think about it. 2 of you can stop this, and then you can all sit down with the heads of the departments and really do some pension, really do some squeezing, and then come up with the true budget increase, which we know there's going to be. And the last thing I'd like to ask is, please, give us some answers tonight. Don't just let the night go by, because I think you're going to get some questions. Is the 3.5% the tax increase? Is it a pull from the cap bank, and then another 2% on top of that? It'd be nice to know where you're sitting. Or, like I say, just shut it down, then rework it. Sit down and sharpen those pencils and get to work. That's what we hired you for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty Montleone. I have a suggestion. If you took each of your departments and asked them, like big corporations do, to cut 10%, don't you think that would help with a tax increase? If big corporations can cut 10% in each of their departments, and they asked them to do frequently, why can't a city ask its departments to cut 10%? None of you look like you're even listening, much less interested. What a shame. Could you smile at least and think it's a good idea? Or do you think it's terrible? Or shake your head or nod or be human? I've never felt so ignored in my life. And I'm 77 years old. And you sitting there look like you just totally ignore. I should stand here for my whole 5 minutes and stare at you guys, because it's not very nice the way. I just thought it was a good idea, and it might help with your decision making to ask. But I guess 10% is too much, but you can ask the poor people that can't even buy coats for their kids to sacrifice. But you can't sacrifice in your department 10%. You're cutting people's water off. You can't ask your departments to cut 10%, but you can ask them to do without water, heat, food, clothes for their kids. This is a poor city. It's a poor county. Have some compassion when you look at that budget. I'm disgusted. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Betty.
Good evening, Angeline Broomhall, Millville. I just would request that you, in the name of transparency, that when you do address the ordinance for the budget, that you make it clear to us exactly what it is that you're asking of us, even if you're going to amend it later, at least so that we understand what it is that we're facing, because we're already into March, so we already owe you, but we don't even know how much we owe you, yet you do. So I do request that you ask that, and I just would like the public to know that when Ms. Monteleone was speaking and felt that she was being ignored, it was because most of the commissioners up there had their heads down and weren't even looking at her. So it's very difficult to come up here as a person not in the public eye and willing to put yourself out publicly and to be ignored, and not even, like right now, I'm getting 3 out of the 5 of eye contact. And I just want the people at home to know that, because they can't see that you're not looking at us when we speak. They don't see that. But if I have to, every time I come up here, name names of who's not looking at me when I speak, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina.
Lynn Comperi. I had 2 questions. I don't know if you'll answer them now. It's about the ordinance, or if you'll answer them at the end after you've already voted. I wanted to know if the cap that you're raising, 3.5%, is that on top of the 2.5, or are you asking for a total of the 3.5? And I also wanted to know what's left in the surplus.
What's left in a what?
The surplus. So I didn't know if you could answer them now, or if Marcy can answer them now, or if I have to
We're
wait
going
till
to have Marcy come up to answer those questions.
If we have additional questions for Marcy, will we be allowed to answer them at that time?
I think that's fair.
Thank you. I also had a few words, if that's okay. When you increase an individual's taxes, it imposes a hardship on those trying to make ends meet. It will be a hardship on those renting, as landlords will be forced to raise the rent to meet their expenses. It's harder to sell or purchase a property, as property taxes are an important consideration and can make or break a deal. Think about that. The taxes are so high now that you're essentially paying 2 mortgage payments every month, one to the bank and one to the city. This results in the higher-end homes not being bought or sold. If they are sold at a far less than what they're worth. This then opens the doors to tax appeals, and it further erodes your tax base. Instead of realizing that the only way to help the city of Millville prosper is to maintain or cut taxes, you as a commission have spent and spent, resulting in a substantial raise in our taxes. You have used the excuse of hiring more police. When you came into office, the budget already had an increase in the officers in it, so that is not a legitimate excuse. You have blown through the surplus, even though it was at an all-time high when you took office. You have done this even though you said you would not waste a surplus during your campaign. You wasted $2 million of taxpayers' money by not going out to bid on the demolition of East Main Street. This could have been stopped by one no vote by one commissioner, but yet you all voted yes. You've hired new employees, not for vacancies that needed to be filled, but for additional staff. This is an expense that automatically increases every year. You have increased the city's debt dramatically, voting for bond after bond, even bonding items that normally should not have been bonded, just as vehicles. The bonds will still be being paid for those vehicles long after they're out of service. The bond debt now is another long-term high after it was substantially paid down in the years prior to you. You have taken the easy way out. It is easy to spend money when it's not yours. Making tough decisions, tough choices, doing your homework, going after other sources of revenue. Think about the long-term repercussions of what you are doing. People are moving out of town. There's more foreclosures, the downhill spiral of the city. Do not hit the citizens of Millville with another tax increase. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Christina Pantelis, lawyer, Millville. Obviously, this is not just me. It's going to hurt a lot of people in the city. This 3%, 3.5% that we know of is going to hurt. My question, I think you might want to take into consideration, a lot of people are barely making ends meet. You raise the taxes how many foreclosures are we going to have because of that? Because they won't be able to make the ends meet with higher taxes. We could save $70,000. Do we really need this recycling supervisor? We haven't had one yet. Last time I checked, the CIA was taking care of the trash and the recycling. There's $70,000 right there. That's all I got.
Thank you. Christina. Anyone else? I close the public comment on agenda items only. Old business, please.
There's no old business, Mayor.
Petitions and letters.
And there are no petitions and letters, Mayor.
Reports of commissioners. Commissioner Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
On Saturday, February 22nd, we held our 17th annual Snowflake Plunge. We had over 20 brave souls that plunged into the frigid waters of Union Lake. Freezing for a reason. We were able to raise over $6,000, which was split between Susan G. Komen and the Children's Hospital. We'd like to thank RoCap Shannon and Millville Chiropractic for donating the money for the Most Improved Swimmer Scholarship at the high school. This is a great event. Hope to see everyone again next year. We also completed the paver repairs at Sassafras Street between High Street and Buck Streets and removed hundreds of bricks and reset them. This area is now free of any tripping hazards. Upcoming projects, we will continue to work on getting prepared for the spring season. We're going through the city-owned properties, removing any trash, debris, leaves, limbs, and etc. Looking forward to a great spring and summer season. If you have any problems out there in those areas, call the Parks Department at 856-825-7000, extension 7394. Also, we're working on new foreclosed properties. We have completed 3 so far: 328 West Main Street, 801 North 2nd Street, and 516 North 3rd Street. These properties take many hours to complete. We're also removing TVs, tires, freezers, tanks, and beds. Upcoming events: the next RVC meeting will be Wednesday, March 18th, 6 p.m. at the Millville Center, located at 1500 South 2nd Street. Hope you can join us. Light snacks will be provided. New this year, since the Christmas coloring went so well, we have an Easter coloring contest. All ages can participate. All entries must be returned in to the Parks Department by April 3rd. And our annual Easter egg hunt will be held Saturday, April 4th, 11 a.m. at the Union Lake Park. The first 100 kids will receive a free Polaroid picture with the Easter Bunny. And again, the Holly City Walking Club every Tuesday and Thursday up until May 28th, 6:30 to 7:30 at Lakeside Middle School. If the school is closed, there is no walking. And with that, Mr. Mayor, moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. Commissioner Pepitone.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Udalvis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Department of Public Affairs reminds all citizens that the upcoming meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment will take place on Thursday, March 5th at 6:30 p.m. in the Richard C. McCarthy Commission Chamber on the 4th floor of City Hall. Additionally, the next meeting of the Planning Board will take place on Monday, March 9th at 6:30 p.m. in the Richard C. McCarthy Commission Chamber on the 4th floor of City Hall. As outlined during the previous Commission meeting, revisions to the zoning ordinance draft continue to be examined by legal counsel, professionals in planning and zoning departments, and members of the Planning Board. Feedback from the public at the February 10th meeting created significant discussion and also provided context for seeking direction from planning consultant CME in regard to the Wawa Tract. Departmental meetings are scheduled to continue examining items of concern over the next week leading up to the next Planning Board meeting. Please note the resolution of the Planning Board that was received and filed at the previous Commission meeting did not constitute a first reading of the ordinance. Therefore, the draft ordinance will not be subject to public hearing at the March Planning Board meeting. However, the public is welcome to utilize the public meeting on March 9th to provide additional feedback regarding the draft. In regard to the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG program, the Department and Citizens Advisory Committee heard introductions from various applicants at the February 20th public hearing. In proceeding with an announcement regarding the 5-year consolidated plan and the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice pertaining to CDBG, the department courteously requests that all interested residents and members of public access a survey to assist in the planning process. HUD requires each municipality to develop a consolidated plan every 5 years to guide the programming of CDBG funds. The consolidated plan will describe the city's housing needs, non-housing community development needs, and homelessness needs. In addition to the consolidated plan, the city is also preparing an analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. The goal of the analysis of impediments is to collect data to determine the current state of fair housing compliance, identify any impediments to fair housing, and to make recommendations to address those impediments. The Federal Fair Housing Act makes it illegal to discriminate in housing because of race, color, religion, gender, age, national origin, disability, handicap, family status, etc. This is an anonymous survey. Responses will be summarized and individual responses will not be shared. The survey will remain open until March 15, 2020. The survey is located on the city website, www.millvillenj.gov, under the tabs of Departments, Public Affairs, and Housing and Community Development. In regard to the March 3rd agenda items, a notice of intent to develop a neighborhood plan in connection with an application for the neighborhood revitalization tax credits will be included within the items to be moved to receive and file within this Commissioner's report. The existing 2013-2019 plan must be updated, and most components of the new draft will stem from the work on the Center City Neighborhood Plan, but in a format required by NRTC. The established Center City neighborhood consists of Broad Street to Main Street, from Buck Street to 6th Street. The plan is to be developed in a manner in which residents, property owners, and business persons within the neighborhood, other nonprofit organizations within the neighborhood, or providing services to neighborhood residents, and the municipal government are fully informed and all given a meaningful opportunity to participate in the development of the plan. This notice serves as the required notice to the municipal government of HCDC's intention to develop a neighborhood plan. Upon completion of a draft plan, Holly City Development Corporation shall submit a copy of the draft plan to the municipal clerk, and a 30-day public comment period will commence. The city may issue a letter or resolution of support or comments. In regard to the Neighborhood Preservation Program, also known as NPP, a quarterly report highlights progress as follows. 10 little libraries have been primed and are scheduled to be painted by 10 different partner agencies. They will be returned by the end of the month and then scheduled for installation throughout the neighborhood in April and May. The community dinner under the stars is scheduled for April 25th at St. Paul Lutheran Church's parking lot. 2 community gardens are scheduled to be constructed on May 2nd and May 9th. One at 401 East Vine Street and the other at 420 through 426 North 3rd Street, which constitutes an item on this evening's agenda. The community gardens also coincide with implementation of Holly City Development Corporation's New Jersey Health Initiatives grant. The aforementioned projects tie in with the 10-year neighborhood plan that was developed for the Center City neighborhood, and these projects were identified by the residents as being priority projects. In regard to economic development, the city and the CCIA held the first monthly conference call for the shared service agreement. The agenda is included to be received and filed with this evening's report. And Mr. Mayor, with that, I move to receive and file correspondence from Holly City Development Corporation dated February 28, 2020, regarding the neighborhood revitalization plan development for Center City, Millville. In addition to a meeting agenda for Millville Economic Development dated February 20th, 2020 at 3 o'clock p.m. And I make a motion to receive and file both documents.
Can I get a
Second motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
With the roll call.
I'm sorry?
Roll call. Right.
Okay.
Right. Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And with the conclusion of this report, Mr. Mayor, progress.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to submit the annual tax collector's report for 2019. Move to be received and filed.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries. I can take those.
Progress, Mayor.
As you know, if you were on Facebook today, I placed on Facebook we received our first compactor truck from the ACUA over on our Parks Department. And what I like for the residents and all of you here to learn is I got some information that we all need to know. Residents will receive their new carts for trash and recycle between March 16th and March 31st. Inside their new carts will be a packet with information on how to use them for trash and recycle. The start date for the use of these new carts is April 1st. Ha, 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 April Fools, right? Every resident's collection day will remain the same. Recycle will be collected bi-weekly beginning April 1st, then skip the next week and resume collection on April 13th through the 17th and every other week after. Last full week of the month, residents can put out tires and appliances out for streets and roads to collect. On regular trash day, residents can place out 2 bulky waste items with their carts, which is explained in the packet that you will receive. Absolutely no construction debris will be accepted for curbside collection. If anyone has any other questions concerning trash and recycle, please contact Streets and Roads at 856-825-7000 at extension 7388. And we are proud to make this transition moving forward for a cleaner and more efficient environment for our city of Millville. So that's basically the update on trash. We should be getting our other truck, hopefully by the end of the week or next week, so that we'll be ready for April 1st. With that, we're going to move on into ordinances on second reading.
Okay, we have a salary ordinance for the Cumberland County Council number 18 contract for calendar years 2020 through 2023.
Mr. Mayor, move the passage of this proposed ordinance on second and final reading.
Second the motion.
So ordinance on second reading, item number 1, salary ordinance of the Cumberland County Council number 18 contract for the calendar year 2020 to 23. If you have any questions or comments in regards to item number 1 on second reading, please step up to the mic, state your name and your concerns, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one, I close item number 1, ordinance on second reading. Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Ordinance is on first reading.
Okay, we have an ordinance approving and authorizing an application to the Cumberland County Roadway Department for the Millville Lightning Travel Baseball 10 and under to hold a coin drop on July 11th, 2020 and July 12th, 2020 at the intersections of Buck, Cheatham, and Cedarville Roads.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this ordinance on first reading with final consideration given on March 17, 2020 after due publication as provided for by law.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 2 is an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank in accordance with NJSA 40A:4-45.14 for the calendar year 2020.
Mr. Mayor, move for the passage of this proposed ordinance on first reading with final consideration to be given on March 17, 2020 after due publication provided for by law.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask at this time that Marcella Shepard, our Chief Financial Officer, also approach in order to provide some feedback to the residents who had expressed certain questions regarding especially whether or not it was 3.5% over the amount of 2.5 or if it was the 1% differential.
I just looked up on the finance notice that was sent out by the state. The 2.5% is the COLA amount that we're allowed to raise the budget. By passing this ordinance, I could go up to 3.5%. The number that you see there in total is 900 and whatever the dollar amount that's written in the ordinance. I don't have a copy in front of me.
In
That's
our
the total.
resolution, I have the hereby determines that a 1% increase in the budget for said year amounting to $273,366.46 in excess of the increase in final appropriations otherwise permitted.
Right. So 1% is usually what we do, but the ordinance says that we're allowed 2.5 without passing the ordinance. But with passing the ordinance, that can go up to 3.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And the total is, the 3.5% total is $981,000. And what happens is if you don't use the entire amount when we finalize the budget, which this ordinance does not say we're going to raise taxes by 3.5%. The budget isn't done yet. We're still working on the numbers and adjusting the numbers. I haven't had a chance to really sit down with all the commissioners yet, so it's not ready to be finalized. The ordinance is only to allow me to have that money available in case we do need it. Otherwise, I would only be able to go up 2.5%. Now, I do have some money in cap banking from 2018 and 2019. I believe I have $600 and some $1,000 from 2018 and $240,000 from 2019, because last year we did raise taxes, so I used some of the amount that was allotted to me.
Now, Marcy, when I had spoken with our city administrator specifically regarding this ordinance on first reading, we had spoken about the background and the context behind this because I did have questions. And some of the initial questions that I had was regarding the frequency with which this cap bank has been used before. And I know that previously it would have been end of 2017, beginning for the actual budget year of 2018, that a cap bank of 3.5% was voted down. It was not approved. But one of the items also that Regina Burke had mentioned was also that it often does accompany an auditor's recommendation. So in that case, maybe you could provide the public with some of the context behind.
Right. It's usually all municipalities do it just to have it available in case, your budget exceeds the 2.5%.
So with Bowman and Associates also being our auditor?
I received an email from Michael, and he suggested that we pass the ordinance, which I would have done anyway, but it's, I just don't want to give the impression that by passing this ordinance, this is what we're raising the budget, because I still don't know exactly how much we're going to be raising taxes for the 2020 budget yet.
And Marcy, also in regard to this, because of the fact that the cap bank, when it was explained to me and the way that I had really, at that point, the way that I had understood the concept is that this is one of those items that it does not guarantee that is going to be raised. Also, respecting all of our residents who are here this evening who have questions about that, I understand completely the concerns that you have, because having this weight on our shoulders, quite honestly, as a commissioner, and looking whether or not you cut across the board in the Walsh Act form of government, unless all 5 commissioners are on the same page, where it's a uniform cut across the board of 10% or even more. Without having that, we have no assurance that our departments are going to be fully prepared if one department decides to cut, let's say, 15 to 20%, and that the other departments decide that they're going to make up the difference. I'm just stating for the public some of the concerns that run through our minds. I also have concerns regarding the fact that when we look at our budget, we also have, and I'll go back to it because I know that our city administrator deals with this on a daily basis. We even have issues that stem from employee complaints where if the workload is such that we have to observe what our council's recommendation is for certain items, that we have to look into whether or not those positions cover it. And if they do not cover it, how is the city making remediations to avoid lawsuits? There are many different facets to this, and all of which do weigh very, very heavily on me as a commissioner, knowing that even if I make the decision to cut from my department, which I would be most happy to do with the CFO's recommendation, that if it's not followed across the board, that the cuts that I've made have only placed my department at discrepancy without any of the other departments delivering. It's simply a concern that I, as a commissioner, I'll provide it to the public because I have no reason to not provide that as full disclosure. Those are the struggles that we deal with every day. I know that that's the struggle that I've dealt with for the last few months in sitting down and going back to the draft of the budget. Marcy was gracious enough to provide us with 2 different options this evening, one of which I'll be sitting with her tomorrow afternoon in order to discuss, to find out how this is going, what the implications will be for my department. But also, I've been willing every step along the way to make sure that if we can make my budget suit what it is that we need to help the taxpayers, that we do. But I also, in turn, while we've heard several comments tonight, I will say that in having spoken to a resident who had issues with permits and inspections, for example, he had spoken to me and he said, I do realize I watch the meetings every single week and I do hear a lot of the feedback. And while I understand that people do not want to pay more, I also know that when I go to my municipality and I would like to have a service, I want to know that it's staffed. I would like to know that the resources are there because we are a large municipality. And if I want to see construction do well, if I want to see the permitting and inspections process speed up, and I do not want to see it halted, I want to know that those resources are there. So humbly, I place this before the public to all who are here this evening to all who are viewing, whether it's by YouTube, whether it's through our local broadcast. I would just like for you to know some of the struggles that we're facing as well. This cap bank that has been passed in previous years and with an auditor's recommendation is, while we would hope that we would not exceed that amount, because that is not the intent of this at all, it is much more of a safeguard than it is the intent to raise taxes. We really are looking at the budget that's to be introduced on March 17th as to being the deciding factor. So I once again, I place this before the public humbly in explaining that with the Walsh Act form of government, whether or not a budget is going to be diminished in one department does not mean that it can be diminished in all four. It doesn't mean that it'll be done easily across the board, or that it'll be done fairly, or even equivalent to what the overall force is, whether it's that you have the largest percentage, therefore you lose the largest percentage from your budget in order to help keep it a little bit more, I'm going to say, proportionate. So in providing that to the public this evening, I'm going to voice that I support going with our auditor's recommendation, going with the recommendation of our professionals, not with going with the recommendation to raise taxes for the taxpayers. I am also a taxpayer. I know exactly what the result will be. I understand that I will be paying more. What I make as far as my decision this evening with the cap bank is in recommendation with what is consistent with our professionals and nothing more, not my fellow commissioners, but with what our professionals have provided us this evening. But I do very solemnly promise to the citizens that the meeting that I have tomorrow regarding the budget, that if there are any recommendations that I can make, if there are any different concessions that I can make from my department to help make this simpler, to make this easier, and going forward in the 2020 fiscal year, that I discuss that with the CFO, and I take everything into account, but I also have to take into account whether issues such as having the proper amount of employee workforce is going to be there as well, consistent with our legal counsel. So with the conclusion of that comment, Mr. Mayor, progress.
Thank you. Is there any other? Go ahead, Marcy.
I would just like to point out, though, that the majority of the budget is salary and wages, which is contractual. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that.
Marcy,
You
and
can't
you
just
made the main point, as the
just
commissioner
can't cut.
said, that you still have to sit down with us.
Yes.
Each commissioner here is going to look at their budget and what they have, and to do the best we can so that we're all in agreement as to moving forward. And the commissioner put it well. So thank you for being here. Now, hold on.
Marcy,
Is
hold
there-
on.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I just want to, for the public's information, I believe there was a question asked about the surplus.
Yes.
The level of the surplus. I think
I
we
don't
should.
have the number right in front of me, but I just filed my financial statements with the state on March 2nd, which was the deadline, and it's $5.2 million, but I think it's a couple dollars more than that, but it's around $5.2 million.
And what about the level of the bonds? How are
Bond
we
of
doing?
vehicles, I think it was the question, right?
The bond rate itself.
That is a decision. The law allows you to bond SUVs, not vehicles, but it's a decision. Some people think you should bond them, and some people don't agree with that. I've dealt with that when I worked at the county. I've dealt with it here. It's a decision. Either you put it in your budget or with the capital. Now, when you do you sell bonds and you have vehicles, the useful life is 5 years, and the building might be 20 years. They average it. So your bonds, you're going to be paying the 5-year one before you pay your items that are 30 years. It's the way that they structure your bond sale and your payments every year.
Right.
They usually pays off the 5-year first, and then it would gradually pay the rest.
I understand.
I could have if anyone is interested, bond attorney would be happy to give an explanation, but that's how they do it.
Okay. Thank you. I look forward to sitting down with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Go ahead.
No.
I did say they could. Go ahead, ask the question, Miss. No, you can ask it from there.
Marcy, so what you're saying, if they vote yes for the 3.5, that is the maximum that they can raise taxes. They can't go over.
Plus my cap banking from previous years of money I didn't use.
And how much is that?
I have around 600, I don't have the numbers in front of me, they're a little over 600 from 2018 and 220,000.
600,000.
Right, and 220,000 from 2018.
So that potentially,
I'm sorry,
so that $820,000 potentially can be on
that's the $1 million question. I can't leave. I always try to leave at least 10%.
You would leave $50,000.
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's what the.
I'm sorry, $500,000.
No, I've never had it below. For the history of Millville, I saw that it was never below $1 million. So I would never bring it below.
Potentially, they could use.
Well, the total budget is around 30 million. So I think you should leave the at least 3 million in there. To me, that would be the safe number.
So they could potentially just use $2 million then of the surplus to make you comfortable.
That would make me comfortable, but however, sometimes you have to go below that. Last year, we went below that.
Thank you.
Okay? Joe? Go ahead, Joe. Joe, give us your name. I know Ms. Campari gave us her name. Can you?
Joe Silly, Millville. I'll be moving to 12 North High Street. You guys keep raising taxes.
12 North High Street. I gotcha.
How much money was in the trust fund a couple years ago? How much is it in now? Roughly.
We converted from a fiscal year to a calendar year. That allows you to bring in state aid.
After that, then let's say over the last 2 years.
Well, last year, when I closed the books in 2018, my number was 6 million. I closed the books now on December 31st. It was 5 million too.
In the trust fund for the insurance.
Well, that's the reason why I'm having issues with this year, because last year I supplemented my revenue with that money that I had in surplus, which was around $1.5 million. Now this year, even if I left the budget exactly what it was last year, I'm short $1.5 million. Somehow I have to find a way to make up that $1.5 million. It's either by taxes, you cut your expenses, or you have to have increase in ratables, which we didn't have. If anything, it went down a little bit. It went down less than I originally thought. But that's the formula for developing your budget. You have your appropriation, and then you have to look at your revenue. It's not just your appropriation, because I can probably come pretty close to not raising the budget at all. The problem is I still have to make up that $1.7 million.
You know what the bond that is now compared to 2 or 3 years ago?
No, actually the bond payment, because
Not the payment, the amount of debt.
I don't want to rattle it off and then be wrong. I'd rather, if you want, I can, stop in. I can give you the number. The annual debt statement was filed at the end of January. That was the deadline with the state. So I'll put it on the website so that everybody can see it.
Marcy, thank you for your effective answers and stuff. My question, our ratables, we're always talking about ratables. We're always doing what I think is wrong. Do you have a figure on how many ratables, how many dollars worth of ratables we lost last fiscal year?
I don't have it to the penny, but it sticks in my mind. $1,261,000,000 last year, $1,258,000,000 this year. So that means it went down around $3 million.
Do you have any idea what?
I believe
What,
that
what was your question? I didn't hear you. Say your question again, please.
she wants to know why the ratables went down. That's
Oh,
really
okay.
a Brian
Yeah, ratables went
question.
Yeah.
I can speculate, but I don't want to speculate and then be wrong. So
I didn't speculate too, that's why I asked.
yeah, Brian would be the person to answer that
Okay.
question for you.
Any other questions for Marcella? Thank you so much, and thank you for your questions. Thank you, Marcy.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Again, each commissioner is responsible for their own budget that's submitted to the finance department. And this has been an ongoing system now this year. I guess starting in January, Marcy, we've really been looking at the budget in January, December of last year, anticipating certain things. So, again, as I've said in prior commission meetings, please, commissioners, set up a time to come in and talk to the finance department. We're more than happy to discuss the budget with you. We do have copies of your budgets, and each commissioner is going to be responsible. If there's an increase, we're going to have to stand up here and say why there's an increase in the budget, and we'll continue to do that. But again, the finance department's open. We're available for any questions. We're happy to respond to that by our citizens. Just give us a shout. give us a shout. We are available. So, we'll be interested and anxious to adopt the budget in some form, we hope, at our next meeting. So your input is important. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is an ordinance authorizing amendment to salary ordinance to add a new title and salary range for the following: Supervisor of Recycling Operations with a minimum of $25,000 and a maximum of $69,653.71.
Mayor, move for the passage of this proposed ordinance on first reading with final consideration to be given on March 17, 2020, after due publication provided for by law.
Second the motion.
Any comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes. I will make a comment on this as a question. So that the public knows this does not affect the budget at all. Oh, Marcy left. Are you here? Oh, no, it's okay. Sorry, Marcy. I apologize. We're just talking about the...
Talking about it while you were away.
The new salary ordinance on the new title and salary range, that it doesn't affect the budget. That this money is from grant money. And I'll allow... Tell me again?
It's Clean Communities and the Tonnage Grant.
Correct. So...
It's also not a new position. It's
Oh,
to promote somebody in
I'm
another
sorry.
title.
I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
It's not a new position. We're not adding an additional
Well, it's
person.
a new position for him.
Well, it's a new title for him,
All right,
but
new
it's
title.
an employee we already have, and it's a promotion because he's going to take over supervisory responsibility.
Correct.
So,
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor.
You're welcome. Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Consent agenda items.
Okay, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Board of Commissioners and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the governing body member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing special assessment of municipal liens for certain properties due to expenses incurred by the City of Millville relating to board and secure, plus administrative fees in accordance with Chapter 11, Article 1, subsection 11-6 of the Municipal Code. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing adjustments in the tax and utility records. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing water sewer termination on March 16, 2020 due to failure to comply with the utility ordinance pursuant to Section 56-18 of the Municipal Code. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing a recycling partnership grant agreement between the City of Millville and the Recycling Partnership Incorporated for grant monies in the amount of $148,000. Item 5 is a resolution approving military leave of absence and payment of pay differential due to call-up of active military duty in the Air Force for Brian Day for the period covering April 4th, 2020 to August 26th, 2020. Item 6 is a resolution approving environmental access agreement between DeMaios Incorporated on behalf of the Delaware River Bay Commission as leasee and the City of Millville as owner for the purpose of removing 2 above-ground storage tanks at the DRBA's expense. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing a memorandum of agreement between the City of Millville and Holly City Development Corporation to develop 2 community gardens on vacant lots owned by the City of Millville located at 420 through 426 North 3rd Street and 401 East Vine Street.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Resolutions.
Okay, item 1 is a resolution authorizing execution of deed for conveyance of real estate known as Block 355, Lot 7, located at 511 Buck Street to Cumberland County Improvement Authority in the amount of $1.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the CCIA to fund and prepare a Library Construction Bond Act grant application for a $6.5 million expansion and renovation of the Millville Public Library and authorizing submission and execution of all necessary related documents by the governing body.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing award of bid for project known as North 9th Street Water Main Replacement to Garrison Enterprises Incorporated, Byline, New Jersey, for their bid in the amount of $503,375.
And with it, Mr. Mayor, I have a certification of availability of funds from Marcellus Shepard, CFO, in the amount of $503,375. Move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
New business, please.
I have a motion to authorize Mayor Santiago to sign permission slip to allow the Cumberland County Department of Public Works and Mosquito Control Division to apply pesticides as needed by aircraft or ground unit, truck, in the city of Millville during the 2020 spray season.
Second the motion.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Pepitone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parent?
Yes.
Commissioner Udalvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Santiago?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We've now reached the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone who would like to address the commission, please go to the podium, state your name, and address your concerns, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Kirk Hewitt, Millville. Commissioner Udalvis, thank you once again for your thoughts, your actual answers through your thoughts. The only thing I'd ask is that maybe the other 4 commissioners paid as much attention. I'll let you slide, Mr. Pepitone, Commissioner Pepitone, because you know my feelings on EMS and the rescue and police department. Commissioner Cooper, you took a lot of praise, whatever, happiness in the turnout at Union Lake for the polar plunge. Did you go?
I was not there.
Thank you. I saw your endorsement for your next move. You ran for Board of Education. I know at least one of your daughters doesn't go to find the Millville school system. She used the choice system. I don't fault you for that because I would love to have my grandson in the choice program to not have to go to the Millville school system. But I will fault you for the fact that you didn't finish your term there. You asked for the people's votes. They gave you their votes. I gave you my vote for Board of Education. You bailed. So now the campaign begins. You initiated it before the other party did, putting your endorsement out there by the Democratic Party. All I can say, I guess it's campaign time. You're looking to bail on the city of Millville, who you guys worked really, really hard for to get their votes, because we worked really, really hard to get their votes too, but didn't. That's okay. That's politics. But now you're already ready to bail on this commission. First, you're going to leave us with another tax increase. So let the battle of the Coopers begin. May the best Cooper win. The Cooper that's there for the people and to turn this county, and the Cooper that's here to tax and spend. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt Hewitt.
Good evening, Angeline Broomhall, Millville. First thing I want to address is the new trash service that's about to start. However, the ordinance still has not been amended again, because when you first signed and passed to get this trash service, you removed bulk pickup, you removed white goods from the ordinance. However, it still hasn't been added back on. So that despite the fact that you're telling us that there will be bulk pickup and white good pickup, it's still not legal. It's just words. So I'm asking, like, when is this going to happen? That it's legal, that your words actually match up with the ordinance. We were also told that we were going to be offered some sort of education on the new service, and that it was required that we have this education, that you provide these meetings and whatnot to the public for the grants. And that the grants were going to cover the trash cans, the $15 per trash can. That grant would come in portions. It wouldn't come all at one time. But I've seen posts that say that you've already received the grants for the new cans. Have we actually received those grants, despite the fact that we have not had what I was told was required education to the public regarding the new recycling? And if we have, in fact, received all or part of the grant money, is it going to pay down the bond we took to pay for the trash cans, or is it being put into the general fund? So those are my questions regarding the trash. I would also like to address the comments made at the last commission meeting by both you, Mr. Parent, and you, Mr. Pepitone. Start with you, Mr. Pepitone. You chose to bring up the fact that the past commission chose not to raise taxes, and somehow that this mess we're in now is due to that. You stated ratables are down. This commission chose to get rid of a volunteer, free, industrial commission and to pay someone else to bring in business that clearly has been a failure and a loss to the city. You mentioned the surplus, which the previous commission was able to add to, not deplete like you have, all while keeping taxes stable. This commission depleted the surplus and has dipped into the insurance trust fund, and will continue to do so, as that seems to be your plan for next year as well. Mr. Parent, you said, quote, "The people of this city wanted more police officers out there. It was done. It costs money to do it." In fact, it was the previous commission who budgeted for new police in the 2018 budget. You were just able to hire them, but it was the previous commission, including you, Mr. Santiago, who did very well at maintaining taxes low and worked with the other commissioners to do that, as well as when you were in charge of public safety, you were able to hire many new police and bring our police department up. So, Mr. Pepitone, when you're attacking previous commissions, remember it was Quinn and Santiago who are also on that previous commission. Now, the fact is that we are down fewer police than when you started. So that's not true, Mr. Parent, that you've given us more police. We have fewer police in this city, in public safety, than we did before you sat in those seats. We have a significantly smaller police force. Where is that money? They leave. We're not replacing them. And I'm counting between 8 and 12, maybe more, that we've lost since you've taken office. That's a lot of money. Where's the money? So not only are we not replacing those officers, we don't have that money. Why do you insist on blaming the previous commission for your failures while in the same breath taking credit for their work? We are broke because you're hiring out-of-town lawyers, unbridled contract amendments, unjustified raises, etc. It's not because the previous commission was able to add to the surplus or maintain a reasonable tax level, as well as adding lots of police. Lots of police. That's not why we're broke. We're broke because you have Doug Long constantly asking for more money, and you say, "Okay, Dougie, sure, no problem." Hint, hint. Hey, Mr. Cooper, how much has Doug Long helped you to try to move up in your political career? Cumberland County party boss who gets all of our money. Please don't mislead the public with false information. We are not safer. We do not have more public safety. While we do have EMS in the works, and I am grateful for that, and I am willing to pay for that. However, it seems that 10, 12 cops, if we're not going to replace them, that would have probably covered most of that EMS, if not all. Thank you.
You're welcome, Angelina.
Hello, Joe Suey, presently East Main Street. A couple things I want to talk about. First, he talked about grant money, not costing the taxpayers anything for that new job. Actually, it does. You're going to pay the pension and other things based on a percentage of his salary, as well as that money can be used to offset other items besides salaries. So you might want to keep that in mind. But what I really want to talk about was CME and the land use ordinance, that 400-page, very interesting document if you can figure out what the heck it says. But I was curious as to why you use CME. I'm guessing that's the company from Philadelphia. So is that where they're from, Philadelphia? I believe. Anyway, it could be coincidental. There's also a CMA that gives out a lot of political donations, specifically to Cumberland County Democrats. So I found that pretty interesting with a brief cursory search. But that land use ordinance is crazy. I mean, of course it came up to planning board, and I'm sure more will be said at the next planning board meeting. But I don't even know how that got drafted. You do the right thing when you're doing these local projects, getting community input. But what kind of community input did you get to the land use ordinance prior to it going to it just doesn't make any sense. You have a planner, you have all these people that are developing projects, and this looks like it was copied from, another city's ordinance, frankly. I think it was up by Princeton somewhere, Lawrence Township probably, by the words left in it that they couldn't manage to change when they redid the document. So, and I don't know how much you paid for that. Well, we'll find out. I'm sure we'll get a vendor's list, and we'll find out how much that cost. And then you can answer for that now. I'm sorry. Pay raises. Well, you're giving out a ton of pay raises. One person in this room got a $12,000 pay raise. And you can't tell me that's not going to affect taxes, because it is. So I don't know. You really need to look at that stuff. You need to consider more than just on the face, the grant's going to pay for this, because there's other things the grants can pay for. And you're also going to have to make pension contributions, et cetera. The list goes on and on and on. Please look into that before you do these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suey.
Betty Montleone, Millville. I thought I was really being nice, and I thought I was trying to be helpful when I suggested the 10% cuts. And I'm not known for being too nice all the time. I'm known for not being politically correct. But I think if you took the politics out of the city, it could have been a really nice place to live. But the politics is what has destroyed it, giving jobs to political friends and paybacks and things like that. And you have to answer for it. You might not answer for it here, but life's short, and a time will come, you will answer for it. So I just feel very bad the way this town has gone. In the 30 years I've lived here, I had such hope for it when I moved here. And as far as ratables goes, I've been trying to figure out why too. But you don't have to look too far. You can look at the mismanagement. You take everything off the tax rolls. Like this new plan with High Street Hemp. You're taking buildings off the tax roll. You just sold a property for $1. You're not going to get any taxes on that property because it's going to become a nonprofit. This is where the ratables are going. The Caseman building next to the Quality Inn and Suites, you lost that because people just give up and say they can't survive here in Millville. That was a big ratable. You can't survive here anymore. And businesses give up. The more you have mismanagement, we don't have, like you said, the police protection. We don't have the city services. It's I can't even describe. There's days when I think about it, I physically get sick because I really care. And I'm sure you'll love, I can never say her name properly, so I hate Ashley, if you don't mind. I'm sure she cares. She really tries, and she tries to communicate with the public. And my heart goes out to her because she needs the four of you to help her and to do what she does, to research, to make choices. It's good for the people, not good for the politicians, not good for your cronies. This has been going on for 30 years. I know, because I've been involved. When is it ever going to stop? I kept thinking, oh, if I just hold on a little bit longer, I'll be able to get the money out of my house. It'll go up. Well, I kept doing that and kept doing that and it kept going down. And who are you going to blame? There is nobody. The people who sit in those seats are to blame for everything in this city. Whether you make the rules, you make the laws. You don't even enforce 80% of them. This town don't have to look like that. If you enforce the laws that's on the books, this place would be spotless. We probably wouldn't have half the crime we have. But people just put trash where they won't, put apartments where they won't, put 50 people in an apartment. Let's face it, this is the problem. Politically correct or not, it's the facts. So I don't want to be politically correct. And you, in sitting there, the way you did is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to you. It's a disgrace to the city. And like Angel said, the viewers can't see what you're doing. I saw what you were doing, and that's awful. That's like me sitting here singing a song while you're trying to talk. Thank you.
You're welcome, Betty.
Hi, how you doing, Commission? Kevin Assalta, Millville. Just had a couple quick questions on 21-3 to 9th Street water main repair. I was glad to see that happen because I know it's blown out about 7 or 8 times at least in the last year. Do you know if that repair cost includes repavement of the road?
It's all included.
Okay. And
Now, when you say, we're not saying the whole road now.
well, it's been patched for the last 2 years. It must have 12 patches on it. The patches outnumber the remaining parts of the actual pavement. The last 3 patches are nothing but dirt. So I'm hoping that it actually includes at least pavement from G Street to Broad Street because that part is nothing but a patchwork. Now, unfortunately, we are an aging town with the aging pipes and sewer. I know there's also quite a few other streets nearby that are having similar issues. Do we have that in our long-term plan to do projects on those before they get to an issue where they're blowing out frequently and each road's turning into a patch road? On that same line, unfortunately, not only is our water main system several centuries old, our sewer systems are. I do a lot of walking around the town. I've noticed a lot of sinkholes that are occurring near drainages, roads that are wallowing down, and we blacktop over and film. But in reality, we're band-aiding that issue. So I'm just making sure that, yes, we're fixing this one, which is a great thing, but that we also have in our long-term project plans to maybe actually start repairing the infrastructure before actual total failure of it happens. Back to the budget a little bit. The 3.5, I understand, does not use all your remaining cap bank. Do we know the percentage of the cap bank that's left? Is it 1%, 2%, 3%? And do we know when the expiration date of that cap bank is? I know you gave me a dollar amount. I just didn't know how that broke down in percentage-wise per year. The other one I was questioning was the library grant, which I think it's great that we're increasing our library, especially in our area. I think there are a lot of people will utilize it because we are slightly challenged on some of our economics. Looks like the whole project was $6.5 million, but it looks like half of that is grant, but is the other 3.5 the city's responsibility on that grant, if I read that correctly?
No, that's not the case.
Okay, so the whole 6.5 is totally grant money?
No, but there are other funding. The library's funding some of that, and I think the Improvement Authority also is funding part of that. I think our contribution, I could be wrong, but I think it's $700,000.
Okay. Now, when you say the library's funding that, the city owns the library, so separate from the city?
They have a fundraising campaign.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, and the last one, which again I thought was a very good positive, the $1 transfer for 511 Buck Street to become a medical clinic, which will also help a lot of residents in this area. But is there any commitment for the city, any responsibilities on the city for that after the transfer of once the medical clinic is up and running? Is there any commitment that the city needs to do on that? Do we have to have a funding amount for that? Do we commit?
I don't think so, and I think that also may be a ratable. I could be wrong about that, but I think it might be a ratable.
Okay, and let's see. I think that's pretty much everything I had on my things, and none of these are urgent. It's just things that as I sit out here, I try to absorb what's going on because I try to stay up on things, and probably am not as much as I should be. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Christina Pantelis, Royer. Okay, I just want to go back to this, I guess, new position, which isn't a new, the person is not new. I have a couple questions. I understand we are getting grant money. My question is, what happens when the grant runs out? Are we going to be keeping this position? And if so, on top of that, we are going to be paying, because we're obviously paying benefits. The other question is, since this is a promotion for somebody, are we getting a replacement for that person? If so, yes, we are paying for it because we have to pay the salary and benefits of the person we are replacing. So those are two questions about the position. And then Angel brought up a question on another note. Trash cans. No one has been able to answer, are we able to buy an extra can? That was, many people asked. We still haven't had answers on that. So I'm going to put that out there. Are we able to buy an extra can?
Thank you.
Christine.
Anyone else? I close the public comments. Comments of commissioners. Commissioner Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Mr. Hewitt, it seems like you're very interested in me lately, or especially today. Let's start by answering a few of your questions or your comments. Your first was I at the Polar Bear Plunge because I seem to be excited about that? I did not go this year because I do have two young daughters who are very involved in sports, and I have to do a lot of transportation on the weekends with them. So this was the one I missed. However, I do spend a lot of my time in Millville doing city things or city events. This is one that I'm sorry I missed. But I do spend a lot of my own time, a lot more than what people think. It's not just coming to a meeting. So I do spend a lot of time in this community. I'm very hands-on, and unfortunately I missed that. However, now we go to my children. And according to you, my daughters don't go to Millville schools, or one, you said. And you're wrong for that. Both of my daughters go to Millville schools. So I don't know where you received that information, but they enjoy Millville schools. Taxes. You're saying that I'm leaving to go somewhere else, and I'm leaving this burden of taxes here. I don't think there's one commissioner here tonight that is not sincerely concerned with not raising your taxes. That's not we do not want to raise your taxes. Each one of us is looking at every avenue that we can, not just Commissioner Udalvis. Each one of us will take a hard look at what we can do to save all of the citizens on this tax burden, including myself. I live here. You may not think I live here because you think my daughters go to another school, but I do live here as well, and I would be a part of that tax burden. So I'm sure we are all very concerned about that. Now, as far as my campaign, I guess you're concerned about that trajectory as well, because you seem to bring that up and how I got to where I'm at. It is my focus to do the best that I can for the citizens of Millville. I am a citizen, a taxpayer, and not only that, I want to do the best for the county as well. If I'm able to do that, I'll do that, because that's what my heart is. This is not a position of I just want to acquire positions. This is about me doing well for the citizens that I come in contact with in this city especially, and in the county. So wherever I go, my intentions are true. This is not some kind of political game for me. I'm not becoming a millionaire from doing this. I spend a lot of time and effort in what I'm doing, just like the other commissioners. So I guess maybe you want to have a little attack on me tonight. But your facts are wrong. So if you want to have a conversation further offline about this, we can have that. I'll be glad to do that. All right, but from now on, if you have problems with me personally, especially with my children, I'd like for you to have that conversation with me personally. I'd appreciate that. And with that, Mr. Mayor, moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pepitone.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Udalvis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Ms. Monteleone's comment regarding eye contact, I apologize if at any time during your discussion my eyes were cast downward. I do know that I keep very detailed notes because I do annotate and I try to keep track of questions. If you ever notice that I'm looking down and my pen is moving, it's because I really am taking word for word some of your questions in order to make sure I go back and I address them. I appreciate your patience. In regard to the comment that Ms. Broomhall had made regarding the ordinance, I had spoken to our city solicitor regarding this because I did have the same questions, very similar questions. If white goods are not included in the ordinance, if it does not include bulk pickup in the ordinance, and the explanation that I was provided by our city solicitor was that the model ordinance that was recommended by ACUA was the ordinance that was instated into our city code. And through further discussion, it was when the mayor and even Mr. McNiss from Streets and Roads had also mentioned specifically from Clean Communities that the white goods and the bulk pickup were going to be part of a courtesy via the city of Millville. So if I can refer that to our city solicitor to explain some of the roadblocks, because I know that consistency in the ordinance was what our citizens wanted. It was what they had needed. And we had kind of discussed the fact that the literature was supposed to be used to address those items. I'm going to refer that right now to our city solicitor.
Yeah, we have, and actually we've had it for a while. We have what I would call an enabling act in the ordinance that enables the Director of Public Works to implement regulations which are in the pamphlet that allow the city, not the ACUA, to pick up certain items, in this case white goods. So it is actually authorized by the ordinance. That's similar to what the state does when there's a state statute that allows the executive branch to issue administrative regulations. It's the same kind of thing. One of the reasons why that was done, and I think it was done a while ago, was it gives us flexibility, and then we can change what we pick up and what we're going to do by simply issuing a new collection pamphlet rather than amending the city code. And so to recap, we're picking up white goods, but the city itself, the mayor's department's going to pick them up, not the ACUA.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. And the Enabling Act was exactly the explanation that I had received at the time regarding the response to whether the ordinance should be amended or not. In regard to citizens who are wondering about the process and the timeline, I did speak with the mayor this evening prior to this meeting in order to inquire into when the department would be providing a presentation, because we had anticipated that citizens would know by March what to expect for April. So in fact, the literature that will be provided on April 1st via ACUA, provided in the cards, I know that the mayor will have his comment coming up as well. It was explained to me that the literature is very detailed in fact, but also that we should be dedicating a work session on March 17th in order to present that to the public via YouTube, whether it's during the regular meeting as well, in addition to present those announcements in different formats so that our citizens who might be looking at the literature, who might want a little bit more explanation, will be able to hear that firsthand through an audio file, whether it's through video. So that is one item that I did speak with the mayor regarding the prioritization for that for March 17th. Regarding the fact of whether or not the grants that are provided regarding the recycling carts should be going toward the bond or into the general fund, as a commissioner, I feel that this is simply my opinion, but the fiscally responsible decision to make would be that any of the grants that are obtained through that and dedicated to the recycling cart should in fact be utilized for the bond. That's only my opinion, and I know that Ms. Broomhall had asked that question, but it was a very good question, and it was a question that really it does require a very clear-cut decision as to whether or not, when the grants are recycled in, are they to go into the general fund to then be dispersed amongst other departments, or are they to be dedicated to pay down that item that we in fact utilized through the grants to apply for. In terms of Mr. Sui's comments regarding the land use ordinance, I would be very, very pleased to obtain all of the items and all of the invoices that we received through Ms. Sarah Birdsall. She was the planner who did in fact place the packet together. It was in early 2018 when I had meetings with her, and at that point the draft ordinance was solidified in as much as there were a few hundred pages at that point that were placed together. The draft ordinance, and I know that Mr. Hewitt had spoken to this about our volunteer organizations. Quite honestly, the amount of time and effort that's been placed through that, we have Chairman Gallagher to thank for that. We have our tech reviews, whether it's with our zoning officer, with our planner, all of the different methods that we've used to, at this point, comb through the ordinance. While they may have not picked up on the typographical errors that are very outstanding, such as the ones pertaining to Lawrence Township, you're absolutely correct. It is a lot of information, and a lot of the information is so specific that I actually did email my supervising planner in preparation for the upcoming planning board meeting. Quite honestly, with a lot of the constraints that will be placed on regular residents, whether it's looking at the expectations for how many sheds you can have on your property, what is the square footage, what is the allowance, what is the setback. We have so many items that have been included in that ordinance, and there were ones that Ms. Birdsall did include from the very beginning. They were very specific, and you could tell that they were geared maybe even towards a municipality that's not our own. And that is not in any way, shape, or form to cast any type of disapproval on that, just in fact that maybe in this case, if the city of Millville is looking at staffing issues, which could be one, in fact, what do we want our ordinance to do? Do we want it to be something that we can enforce? Do we want the requirements within it? For example, Mr. Carty had brought up if you have a vessel of 21 foot or longer, if you're looking at a boat and you have 21 feet, then requiring a structure, what kind of a disadvantage is that going to place our residents with existing structures? I do wholeheartedly feel, and I think that this is one that we talk about volunteer organizations playing a huge part. I think that we do honestly need a smaller subcommittee at this point. Now that the ordinance has been pushed out through that first reading, the citizens have been able to see what our Chairman Gallagher has been working with, what our engineering department, what our planning and zoning department have been working with. Quite honestly, now I feel it's the time for us to have even more feedback from residents. How is this going to impact us? CME would only be contracted, and we do have them as a planning consultant, and I'll tell you the story behind that as well. In terms of what CME is inspecting, it's solely whether the Wawa tract, which is congruent with what some of our citizens had mentioned, whether the Wawa tract should be subdivided into different areas within the zones. So it's only looking at the Wawa tract. We would not ask a consultant to go through a volume of that document, knowing my department would not, knowing the cost that it would incur. So quite honestly, looking at the cost of having a planning consultant go through that when we've already had one planning consultant from 2017 through 2018 work on it to that volume, that's not something that is a job that's geared toward a planning consultant. One that does require feedback from residents and should require a smaller subcommittee that I think that our planning board members would be ever so pleased to entertain that idea because of the fact that it has been since 2018, and I'm going to say roughly since May when we started to roll out portions of the ordinance. It is so voluminous that it's very, very difficult to look through it and try to decide what do you get rid of, what do you keep. Is there a beneficial use to having 3 sheds on a property or allowing 3 smaller structures? Is there a beneficial use to requiring a structure over a 21-foot boat? Those are the questions that we need to have our citizens ask us. Those are the questions that we need to come up with a consensus. Is it worth it? And quite honestly, if the city has the number of issues that we're facing, if we can't enforce it, it should not be in our ordinance. If it's not an item that it needs to be a priority, that's something that maybe later on could be re-examined. In terms of the history with CME, in 2018, when Mr. Jim Schroeder was our solicitor, it was recommended through an airport redevelopment plan for CME to be considered for one of the items. After that, quite honestly, our department did have the opportunity to entertain through the RFP process 2 or 3 other contracts that were touted as being professional services contracts. Through Chris Dockney, who had drafted the airport redevelopment plan, this was an item that our supervising planner felt was very comprehensive. They felt that it was completed in a timely manner and also felt that even the cost of it was economical compared to what would be considered for other redevelopment plans. Having had the cooperation of the department, that was one of the items that was considered. So quite honestly, while CME may have been recommended by a previous city solicitor at that time, it was the effort and it was the work ethic that was demonstrated throughout the airport redevelopment plan for the James R. Hurley Industrial Park that did give our department the impetus and the decision-making to move forward in 2020 with a professional services contract. I can also research what the amount is for this coming year regarding having CME as our planning consultant. I know that I do believe that it's under $7,000. Please don't quote me on that. Our city.
Well, we have an hourly rate and it would be awarded by
Right.
what task we were given to perform.
One of the items also that was factored into this, it was a small contract amount, and at the next meeting I will make a note to also have that unless you prefer it via email. Okay. So for the CME contract, one of the items that we also looked at in terms of planning was that in going forward with specifically one of the properties, which would be 200 G Street, if we're looking at having a small contract amount and having other properties that are interested or other property owners interested in industrial parks, that through the escrow amounts, that they would be able to offset the disbursement of funds through those contracts. So while the contract amount was granted through the certification of funds for a certain amount, it was always the intent that for different developers who are coming in while they're placing money in escrow, anything that has to go to planning would therefore be funneled through escrow in order to help offset those costs. But in terms of the history behind CME, that is in fact, I have, with full disclosure, it was a recommendation from our city solicitor in 2018. And through the testament of our department and having seen the product of the airport redevelopment plan, that's how it continued. So in terms of the questions that we were hopefully able to, at least I'll refer it now at this point. I will conclude my comments and allow for Mayor Santiago to address the questions regarding the recycling, but I'm certainly open to any other questions you have. I do feel very strongly, though, I know that you had mentioned the land use ordinance. I do feel very strongly that there are so many impacts that would impact our residents that, quite honestly, we will not have CME look at those items. It's inundated with detail. That's something that we need to have more public comment on. So if we're looking at it being residential properties, we're looking at things such as structures, we're looking at things such as what are the requirements if you were to have a boat or an RV. I think we need to go back and look at that in addition to the typographical errors that might have represented other townships. Thank you, Mr. Suey, for your comments today. I greatly appreciate it. With the conclusion of the comment, Mr. Mayor, progress.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for coming this evening, listening to your inputs in reference to our budget. We will do the best we can, continue our meetings until the next meeting when our budget will be presented again, and looking forward to some more input. Again, do not hesitate to notify us during the week. We are available. We'll continue to work on that budget. And once again, it's going to be a tough budget. It's going to be a real tough budget for everyone to look at. And decisions are going to have to be made. Decisions are going to have to be made by each commissioner. And we'll review it. And that's pretty much where we are, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Brumall, was your question answered by Mr. Russell? We are going to provide extra services as a Public Works Department.
That's done by the city?
Yes, by us. Yes, we will be doing that ourselves because ACUA is not going to pick up all the items. So we're going to have to provide those services. Okay?
Do you know if we did receive any of that? I'm sorry. Do you know if we did actually receive any of the money, the grant money?
Did we see 148?
My instinct is no. I don't know.
148, Marcy?
We did the application, but the money was not received. But the question was what we're going to do with the money. Bond law says anything that was bought with bond money, if you get any kind of reimbursement, it has to go back.
It's a matter of law.
So
And
we
I
did
al-
not get,
Hold on.
I'm sorry. So we did not.
Did not receive it yet.
And I also, you receive it in increments as we do the education. It's a very slow process getting it back.
All right. Ms. Brumall, you're good then?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Kevin, you can call my superintendent in the water department, Steve Pierce. Remember his extension 7382. We are having a problem with infrastructure. The city, it's old. And, things are popping up here and there. Like you said, 9th and Main has been a headache for a while. And we're finally getting to it. But Steve will answer all the questions you need. There was a question about the carts. All right, Christine? If you can buy extra, you can. But we're going to just give it a little grace period for us to get, into the process to see how you like them or if you don't like them, if you want to grab a new one or you want to grab a smaller one. Okay? So we are going to open that up. But we hope that hopefully by fall, we're really, really into this and moving forward with a cleaner community. Any other questions that I might have missed? I know I wrote some down. Anybody else? Okay. Well, listen, thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. Marcy, thank you so much. I know we held you over, and I hope everyone has a safe trip home. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second motion.
All right.
Aye.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's done. Thank you. Nice job, Commissioner.